grade at St. Rose Catholic School. The sun was burning the blue right out of the sky, and the heat was rubbing against my skin like an itchy blanket. There was no one around to play with, so I was out in the backyard throwing dirt clods at the skinny almond tree against the fence. My mother wasn't feeling well because of the heat, and she was lying down in her room, trying not to burst into flames. My father was off on maneuvers with the Army for a few days. I didn't know exactly what maneuvers were, but the Army did them a lot, and my father must have been Paco because he got invited every time. I'm still pretty angry about this whole first grade thing. After I'd been in kindergarten for a year, what more could they possibly teach me? But apparently in our family, first grade was some kind of family tradition, and there was no getting out. The trouble with throwing dirt clods, even when it's fun, it gets tiresome after a while if there's no one around to talk to. So I decided to go around to the front of the house and see if anybody else had come back and there was somebody to hang out with. I settled on the front steps and looked up and down Oak Street. There was still nobody. Mr. Lamas to the left there was at work down at the bank, so I couldn't go see him. And Mrs. Lamas was off in Fresno seeing her sister. Mrs. Lamas' sister was a sister who lived in a convent. She was old, probably 40. She had skin like wax paper. Her long black nun's outfit made her look like Batman's grandmother. Across the street, Zona Crawford's house was quiet. She was up in Salinas with her family visiting cousins. It really didn't bother me that Zona was gone. She was bossy. She thought she was 7.5 years old and she could push me around. As far as I was concerned, she could stay up there. Next to Zona's house, even the Assembly of God Church was quiet. That didn't happen often. Usually they were over there whooping and hollering day and night, praying to beat the band. Mr. Lamas called them holy rollers, but my father said they were assholes because they took up all the parking spaces. I figured it was quiet because God finally got sick of all the racket and told him to pipe down over there. Off in the distance, I heard a door slam and then somebody cried. It sounded like Mary Kay Lang, who lived over on the other side of Lamas with her family. I heard Mrs. Lamas tell my mother that Mary Kay was an oops baby. It's probably because she fell down so much. My mother said I had to be nice to Mary Kay because she was special, but she didn't seem all that special to me. She didn't talk much and she couldn't play any games. And the only food she liked were mashed potatoes and red jello. I didn't want to get caught out there and have somebody tell me to go play with Mary Kay, so I decided to go down to the other end of the street and see Miss Easterling. Miss Easterling used to be a school teacher, but my mother said she retired, which is probably why she was asleep in her porch swing so often. Miss Easterling was the only one on our block who could write as well with her left hand as she could with her right. My mother said people like that were amphibious. The trouble was, once you'd seen Miss Easterling write with both hands, the trick got kind of old. But she seemed to like having me around, and I enjoyed being invited to sit on her porch swing. Miss Easterling had a big hedge around her yard, higher than my head. And so it wasn't until I got into her yard that I realized I'd made a big mistake. Miss Easterling wasn't in her yard, but Bicycle Pete was. Bicycle Pete was this mean, nasty, crazy old guy who got his head hurt during the war. He wasn't allowed to drive a car. He rode around our neighborhood on a big green Schwinn bicycle, doing yard work for all the neighbors. He was always mad about something, and when he shouted at you, he sounded like Popeye's crazy brother. When I walked into the yard, Bicycle Pete had been trimming the hedges, and he was raking up some of the cuttings. He didn't see me at first. I should have run while I had the chance, but suddenly my sneakers weighed more than my father's Buick. I stood there staring at him, and finally he turned around and saw me too. He just looked at me like he decided he was going to kill me, and he was trying to figure out a way to make it really hurt. I wanted to run, but I was just frozen there. He kind of gurgled something at me in this Popeye voice. I wasn't sure what he said, so I just stared at him. He gurgled again and pointed at the big hedge clippers laying on the ground. Bicycle Pete was going to chop me into hamburger, and he wanted me to hand him the murder weapon. Well, once again, I thought about running, but in my family, good manners were more important than personal safety. So I finally just bent over and got the clippers and handed them to him. Instead of killing me, he just gurgled some more Popeye at me and then gave me a little pat on the shoulder and turned around. I decided now would be a good time to get the heck out of there, so I took off down the street. My sneakers were slapping on the hot sidewalk all the way home. A little later, sitting on the porch, reflecting on my afternoon, I had a chance to go over things that had happened. My mother told me that you should try to learn something new every day. I had learned that even something fun like throwing dirt clods was better if you shared it with someone. And I learned that if you're nice to people and show them some respect, maybe they won't chop you into hamburger. And I learned that maybe I didn't know everything after all, and I should go to first grade, at least for a few weeks. All in all, that's not bad for a blazing August afternoon. Mr. Toastmaster.
Nice, let's give Tom a hand. Actually, when I read that speech number 4 focuses on writing for the year, I was trying to think about what that meant. And I was actually an English major. And very often when you, go to the bathroom, John, that's fine. I'll give them more money. I
I was there. Hey, appreciate you putting this
Oh, I really am a total